Long ago, she was called High Queen, Zalaire, beautiful, powerful, respected. The king had chosen her as his first mate, proud of her wisdom and royal blood. But when years passed and no child was born, everything changed. Now, no one called her Queen. She lived alone in the cold east wing of the palace. It was once a guest hall, but had been turned into her prison of silence. The walls were cracked, the lights flickered, and the air always felt too cold. No servant cleaned for her anymore. No guards stood at her door. Even the food was left outside without a word. She used to wear shining dresses with jewels from 10 systems. Now she wore a simple gray robe. The king had taken a younger queen, a woman with golden scales and a loud voice. She walked through the palace with pride, mocking Zalaire's quiet steps and aging face. "The old queen still walks," she would laugh. "Perhaps she's looking for her lost womb," Zalaire never replied. Her heart hurt, but her pride was stronger than tears. One afternoon, while she sat in her garden of dying flowers, a strange sound came from the sky. Low hum, sharp, different. A ship landed outside the west gate. Palace workers rushed out. Small team of humans stepped down, carrying tools and equipment. Among them was one man, tall, dark-haired, his face calm. His name was Elias. He had been called by the king's court to fix an ancient royal artifact, something even alien engineers couldn't repair. Elias didn't speak much. He observed more than he talked, and he never bowed without reason. While the young queen screamed orders and showed off her riches, Elias's eyes wandered. That's when he saw her Zalaire, standing under the fading light of a broken tree. Her skin was soft silver, her eyes tired yet deep. She didn't wear makeup or jewels, but her posture, the way she stood quietly against the wind, held a kind of grace that no one else in the palace had. Elias didn't know who she was. No one had told him about the old queen. But when he looked at her, something told him this woman was important. The young queen marched to Elias, expecting praise. "You will begin the work tomorrow. You will address me as..." But Elias suddenly turned his head. He walked past her, straight toward the garden. Straight toward Zalaire. She stood still, surprised. Then he bowed, deep and respectful. The servants froze. The young queen's mouth dropped open. Zalaire stared at the human. No one had bowed to her in years. "Forgive me," Elias said softly, "but you seem like someone who deserves respect." She said nothing, only nodded slowly. The young queen stormed away, her footsteps sharp with rage. After that day, Elias came to the garden often. He worked during the day, but in the evenings, he would bring small tools and sit on the cracked bench near her flowers. He fixed her broken seat. He replaced a light, even helped carry a fallen branch. They rarely spoke at first. But slowly, little things came out. He asked her name. She hesitated. "They call me nothing now," he smiled. "Then I will call you, my lady." She almost laughed. It felt strange in her mouth, but not bad. In the days that followed, Elias listened. He didn't interrupt, didn't offer pity. He only sat and listened while she told stories of the past, the grand halls. The songs sung during royal feasts, the way the king once held her hand when no one was watching. She didn't cry, but her voice sometimes shook, and when she paused, Elias would gently say, "Please, go on." Servants whispered that the old queen smiled again. She'd begun brushing her hair, even sitting straighter. Rumors flew like wind. The young queen ordered the guards to stop Elias from visiting the garden, but the king refused. "He is a guest," he said. "Let him finish the repairs." Elias didn't know why the queen had been cast aside, didn't care. All he saw was a woman full of sorrow, buried under silence. And all he wanted was to bring her light. One evening, as the sun faded into purple skies, Zalaire turned to him. "No one has seen me for years," she said. "But you looked at me." Elias didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I saw someone who needed to be seen." Her lips trembled. She looked away quickly, and for the first time in many years her heart beat with warmth. Asterisk, the sun had not yet risen when Zalera stepped into the garden. The dew on the leaves sparkled under the moonlight, and the cold wind made her robe fluttered gently. She no longer walked like a forgotten ghost. There was strength in her steps now, something different in her eyes. That morning, she held a small cup of warm tea, something she had started doing only after Elias came into her life. She waited. He always arrived early, sometimes before the servants began their day. Said the garden was peaceful before the noise of palace life began, and she had silently agreed. The guards watched him from a distance but never stopped him. He had become part of her routine like the rising sun. Today, though, he was late. Her hands tightened slightly around the cup. She heard voices in the hallway, louder than usual. Then she saw him, stepping into the garden with his bag of tools. His face was calm, but his shirt was torn near the sleeve. She saw a bruise forming near his jaw. "What happened to your face?" she asked, her voice sharp and unfamiliar even. To her, he smiled, touching the bruise like it was nothing. "Palace guard," he said, a small misunderstanding. "They didn't like that I fixed a chair in your room." Zalera's lips pressed together. She turned away, trying to hide the storm. Rising in her heart, she had been ignored for so long that kindness now brought danger to the one person who treated her like she mattered. "You should not return here," she said quietly. "I will," he replied, placing his tool bag on the bench, "unless you no longer want me to." "I don't want you to be hurt," she said. He looked at her, and for a moment the quiet stretched between them. Then he said something that made her heart race. "People like you don't deserve silence. They deserve voices that remind them they still matter." She didn't know what to say. No one had spoken to her like this in so many years. Not even the king. Especially not him. Elias worked quietly that morning, fixing a broken light near the bench. Zalera watched him from the side, her eyes following his movements. There was nothing royal about him, yet everything he did had grace. He did not move with the stiffness of palace officials or speak like those trained in politics. He was honest. He was human. When he finished, he stood beside her. "Walk with me," he said. She hesitated. "Not inside the palace," he added quickly. "Just here in the garden?" She nodded slowly. They walked between the dried flowers and broken statues. The garden had once been filled with color and music. Now it was a memory of what was lost. But walking beside him, she didn't feel lost. "Where do you come from, Elias?" she asked. "A cold place, far from here," he said. "We didn't have palaces or servants. We had hard work, long winters, and family dinners. Did you love it?" "Hated it," he laughed. "Then I missed it every day once I left." She smiled, the curve of her lips soft and slow. They walked in silence again until they reached a corner of the garden where a tree had fallen long ago. She sat on the wide trunk. He sat beside her. "Can I ask you something?" he said, his voice lower. She nodded. "Why did they stop looking at you?" Her breath caught in her throat. She looked ahead, not at him. "Because I failed to give him a child," she said. "Because the young queen succeeded. Because in this place, failure means invisibility." He didn't speak right away. Then he said something she had not expected. "You didn't fail. Someone else failed to see your worth." She turned to him. Their eyes met. The wind moved softly between them in that moment. She felt something deep in her chest, something unfamiliar. A flicker of warmth, quiet pull. She stood quickly, brushing off her robe. "You say dangerous things, Elias." He stood too, his eyes still on hers. "Then I will keep saying them, till they no longer feel dangerous." Later that night, while the palace slept, Zalera lay in her room, staring at the ceiling. She had no dreams that night, but she woke up with a new feeling inside her, a need to be seen again, a need to feel alive, and somewhere deep inside her, something was beginning to awaken, something no medicine had ever touched. Asterisk. The queen opened her eyes to a soft golden light spilling through the cracks in her chamber wall. Morning had arrived quietly, but something felt different. The air was warmer than usual, almost comforting. For the first time in years, she did not feel cold when she stepped out of bed. Her hand instinctively moved to her belly. There was no pain, no tightness, only a strange warmth that pulsed deep inside. She paused, standing in the middle of the room, her silver robe catching the sunlight. Her skin glowed faintly, as if something inside her had changed overnight. She walked to the garden without speaking to the servants. None of them met her eyes, but that no longer mattered. The only eyes she cared about were waiting near the tree bench. Elias was already there, sitting cross-legged on the stone path with a small toolkit in his lap. He was fixing a cracked pipe that ran through the garden's water channels. She noticed. His hands were dusty, but his face looked calm and focused. She said nothing at first. She only watched him. "You're early today?" he said without looking up. "I couldn't sleep," she replied. He smiled and set the tool aside. He looked at her carefully and spoke in a softer voice. "You look different," she admitted, sitting beside him. Their shoulders didn't touch, but the closeness felt heavier than silence. "Different how?" he asked. "I don't know," she said, staring ahead. "Lighter, warmer, as if my body is not made of stone anymore." He pulled a small scanner from his pocket, one designed for old machinery but adapted with human tech. She raised a brow at him, half curious, half amused. "You want to scan me like a broken machine?" she asked. "Sometimes," he said, grinning. "Even broken machines still work perfectly if given the right attention." She didn't argue. She simply lifted her arm and allowed it. The device hummed quietly, its soft light passing over her body. She watched Elias as he narrowed his eyes, frowning slightly, then blinking in surprise. His smile faded slowly. "What is it?" she asked. He didn't answer right away, turned the scanner toward her, showing the results. She didn't understand the lines and numbers, but his expression was clear. "Your system is healing," he said. "Your reproductive pathways? They were blocked, not damaged." She stared at him. Her breath felt shallow. "You told me it was impossible, that it was all broken." "I thought it was," he said. "But your people used ancient treatments to suppress natural cycles. Human medicine works differently. The healing process started weeks ago, little by little. And now, ... something inside you is responding." She placed a hand over her stomach. "You mean I can ... "I don't want to promise anything," he said gently, "but your body is not empty. It is alive." Her fingers trembled on her robe. For so long, she had lived with silence inside her. Now, there was motion, energy, the spark of something new. Not a child yet, maybe not even a possibility. But the seed of hope had returned. She stood quickly, too quickly, and nearly lost her balance. Elias caught her by the arms, steadying her. "Careful," he said. His hands were warm. She looked at them, then at his face. Her pulse quickened. "I'm not fragile," she whispered. "No," he said. "You are not." The wind moved between them again, brushing her hair across her cheek. She didn't move it away. In the distance, a guard watched from behind a stone wall, his eyes narrow. He turned and walked off quietly. Later that evening, when Elias returned to his quarters, he found a warning etched on the wall in dark red ink. One word: leave. He didn't tell her. Instead, he focused on the scanner's results, studying them under the dim light. He cross-checked the readings with human medical files and compared them to alien biology records. Everything pointed to one truth. Her body was no longer lifeless. She had been wrongly labeled, discarded by her own kind, and now she was healing not because of machines or rituals, but because of care, connection, and something human that had touched her deeper than science. He looked at the tiny blinking dot on the scanner screen. A soft pulse in the center. It was small, but it was there. The next morning, when he returned to the garden, she was waiting with a question he did not expect. "What? If the king finds out?" "He will," Elias said. "Eventually. And what will he do?" "I don't know," he admitted. "But I know this. You're not his anymore. Not truly. Not after he gave you away like a broken chair." She looked down at her hand, still. Remembering how the king once slipped a ring onto her finger with cold fingers and fake promises, Elias reached out and took that hand now, holding it gently. "You belong to yourself," he said. "And if a life is growing inside you, then it belongs to no king." She didn't cry, but for the first time, she allowed herself to believe. She could carry life, and it would not belong to a throne. It would belong to her, and perhaps us. To the human who gave it back, the throne room was colder than usual. Even with sunlight streaming in through the tall crystal windows, the walls felt heavy, almost like they were holding secrets. Servants moved quietly, speaking in whispers, their eyes always lowered. The king sat on his throne in silence, tapping, one sharp claw against the golden armrest. He had sensed something for days, something strange in the palace air, something changing. It wasn't the young queen's doing. She was loud as always, flaunting her new necklace made of rare stones. And mocking the staff behind their backs? No, the change was elsewhere. It was quiet, hidden, but it stirred his thoughts like a thorn beneath silk. He ordered the head guard to report. The tall soldier stepped forward and bowed. "She walks differently now," the guard said. "She smiles in the garden. She wears perfume again." The king's fingers stopped tapping, and the guard hesitated. He spends too much time near her, even during the off hours. They speak privately. He brings her things. The king's voice dropped lower. "What kind of things?" "Warm cloths, fruits, tools." He repaired the light over her bedchamber. The young queen, standing behind the throne, laughed. "Let her keep the human. It's all she can carry now." The king stood up. Silence. His voice echoed across the hall, and even the air seemed to freeze. The queen took a step back. Her smile vanishing. He gave no further orders, but in his eyes. There was a storm gathering far from the throne room in the quiet garden. Elias leaned close to the soil as he carefully planted new seeds. Zalera stood nearby, watching him with a strange mix of joy and worry. The soil was dry, but he said the roots below still held strength. So did she. But now fear had begun to rise in her chest. Her walks were no longer safe, her chambers no longer silent. At night, she heard footsteps that stopped outside her door and stayed longer than necessary. Her food had a strange smell one evening, and she dared not eat it. She said nothing to Elias, but he knew. He could see it in her eyes. In the way she hesitated before speaking and how she checked the shadows twice before sitting down. "You're being watched," he said finally. "I always have been," she replied. "But now they see too much." He looked around, then spoke in a low voice. "I saw the scan again. Your body's not just healing. Something is growing." She looked at him sharply. He nodded. "You carry life now. It's early, but it's there, and it's strong." Her knees almost gave out. He caught her before she fell. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't let them fall yet. She whispered his name, and he held her close right there in the garden. "You cannot stay," she said into his chest. "I won't leave," he answered. "If they find out what's inside me, they'll destroy it. They will." He looked down at her belly, then into her eyes. "Then we won't let them find out." The next day, Elias worked quietly, but moved quickly. He used old parts to build a signal blocker for her chamber, masking her presence from internal scans. He slipped neutral herbs into her tea to keep her symptoms calm. Every step he took was careful, hidden, quiet, but danger moved faster than secrets. One evening, Zalera sat by the fire in her room. A loud knock shook her door. She froze. Before she could answer, the door burst open. The king entered, alone. Without his guards, his eyes were sharp, glowing faintly under the firelight. He looked at her as if she were a stranger. "I hear the dead garden blooms again," he said. Zalera stood up, her spine straight. "It does." With help, he stepped closer. "You wear color again? You sing even softly. You walk as if the past never touched you." She didn't reply. "Tell me," he asked, his voice like ice. "What has changed?" She held her breath. "You left me with nothing. But I found something. The king's." Expression didn't change. His voice dropped lower. Is it human? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. He turned and walked out without another word. That night, Elias found a warning on his door again. This time it was not a word. It was a smear of dark blue blood. Not his. Zalera waited for him in the shadows, her hands shaking. They will take you, she said. They will use me to make a show of punishment. Then we run, he said. Where can we go? He reached into his bag and pulled out a small glowing chip. There's a ship waiting, he said, hidden beyond the palace walls. Been preparing it since the day I scanned your body and saw hope? She stared at him, trembling. Are you asking me to leave my world? I'm asking you to choose life. She didn't answer that night, but she packed her robe before dawn. The palace was quiet under the cover of night, but inside Zalera's chamber, tension was thick and unspoken. Shadows stretched long against the walls as she and Elias moved quickly, packing the few belongings she dared to take. Her heart pounded not, just from the fear of what might come, but from the thrill of choosing a new path. The path was unknown, but it was hers to take. Elias checked the tools one last time, his fingers steady, despite the weight of what they were about to do. The small glowing chip he carried was the key to their escape, a hidden code that would unlock the ancient human ship, waiting beyond the palace walls. It had been concealed for years, forgotten by most but not by Elias. Zalera's mind raced with memories of the palace, the cold stares, the harsh words, the long years of silence. But now, with Elias beside her, those memories felt like chains she was finally breaking free from. We must be careful, Elias whispered, eyes scanning the hallway through the cracked door. Guards will patrol soon. She nodded, swallowing. Her hand rested lightly on her belly, a place that held a secret stronger than any weapon in the palace. The child growing inside was a symbol of hope, but also a dangerous truth. If anyone found out, they would stop at nothing to end it. They slipped out into the shadowed corridors, their footsteps light on the cold stone floors. The palace felt different at night, silent but alive with danger. Every corner held the possibility of discovery, yet as they moved farther from her chambers, Zalera felt a small flame of courage kindle within her. Outside, the sky stretched wide and dark. Stars shone brightly, indifferent to the struggles of those below. Elias led her through a hidden passage known only to a few, past ancient statues and forgotten rooms, until they reached a small door, concealed behind vines and dust. He placed the chip against the panel, and the door hissed open, revealing a small craft gleaming faintly under the moonlight. It was not the grandest ship she had ever seen, but it was fast and quiet, a perfect vessel for a secret journey. As they climbed inside, Elias took her hand gently. We leave tonight, he said firmly, no turning back. Zalera looked at him, searching his eyes for certainty. She found no lonely determination and a strange kindness that made her believe in a future she had never dared to imagine. The engines hummed softly as the ship lifted off, slipping past the palace walls without detection. All below the palace, lights twinkled like distant stars, a world she was leaving behind. Hours passed in silence. Zalera rested her head against the cool window, watching galaxies drift by. The child inside her kicked softly, a reminder that life could grow even in the darkest places. Suddenly, the ship's alarms blared. Elias's face tightened as he scanned the controls. Something is following us, he said, voice low but urgent. Zalera's heart skipped. She gripped his arm. They found us. Elias pushed buttons, weaving the ship through asteroid fields and cosmic debris. The pursuer was fast and relentless. A sharp beam of light sliced the darkness, narrowly missing the ship's hull. We can't outrun them forever, Elias said. But I know a place. Zalera didn't ask questions. She trusted him completely. Minutes later, the ship entered. A hidden nebula, clouds of glowing gas and swirling light. The pursuers hesitated, their sensors confused by the strange environment. Elias used this chance to activate a cloaking device. The ship disappeared into the mist. They waited in silence, hearts pounding until the danger passed. Zalera turned to Elias. Who were they? "Palace guards," he said grimly. "Sent to bring you back. Or worse." She shuddered. For the first time, the full weight of her escape settled on her. "Will they try again?" "Maybe," Elias said. "But we will be ready." Days turned into weeks as the ship traveled deeper into uncharted space. Zalera's strength grew with each passing day, her body adjusting to the new rhythms. Elias taught her how to pilot the ship, how to read the stars, how to survive in the vast unknown. But the greatest lesson was one of hope, the hope that the future belonged not to kings or courts, but to those brave enough to fight for it. One morning, as the ship approached a small green planet bathed in golden light, Zalera felt the child move again, this time stronger, more certain. She placed her hand on her belly and whispered, "We will be safe here." Elias smiled and took her hand. "We have found a new home, far from the shadows of the palace, far from the cold walls of the throne room." A new story was beginning, one of life, love, and a future written by their own hands. The green planet stretched out beneath them like a promise. Vast forests shimmered with silver leaves, rivers wound like glass ribbons, and mountains stood tall under a sky painted with twin suns. For the first time in many moons, Zalera breathed deeply without fear. The ship touched down softly on a quiet plain, far from any known paths or settlements. Elias helped her step down, steadying her with gentle hands. Her steps were careful but firm. The child inside her moved with a new energy that made her smile despite the aches and weariness. This was a place untouched by the palace's cold gaze, a place where they could begin again. They made camp near a clear stream, the water cool and sweet. Elias began to explore the land, marking safe areas and searching for resources. Zalera stayed close to the fire, her thoughts turning inward as the future stretched uncertain and wide. One evening, as the twin suns dipped behind the trees, a strange sound came from the forest edge. Leaves rustled and shadows shifted under the glowing sky. Elias stood, weapon in hand, his eyes sharp and alert. Zalera reached for his arm, steadying herself. Out of the darkness stepped figures unlike any she had seen before, tall, slender. Beings with luminous skin and eyes that glowed softly like stars. Their voices were calm but firm as they spoke in a language she could not understand. Elias lowered his weapon slowly, signaling peace. To Zalera's surprise, the beings did not approach with hostility. Instead, one stepped forward, placing a hand over his heart and bowing slightly. The gesture was familiar, almost royal. They spoke through a translator device Elias had kept on the ship. The beings introduced themselves as the guardians of this world, protectors of life and peace. They had sensed the arrival of new life, a rarity in the vast reaches of space. The queen's heart quickened. She understood then that this was no ordinary refuge. This planet was special, sanctuary for those cast out or forgotten. The leader of the guardians looked at her with ancient eyes and said, "Your journey has been long. The blood you carry is unique. It bridges worlds." Zalera felt a sudden warmth spread through her body, stronger than ever before. The child inside responded, and she placed a hand over her belly. Feeling the powerful life growing there, the guardians offered their help, knowledge, protection, and a place among them. They spoke of a prophecy, a coming of a child born of two worlds who would bring balance to the stars. Elias smiled with hope, but Zalera felt the weight of the moment settle upon her. The child she carried was more than a secret now. It was a destiny. Days passed with learning and healing. The guardians taught them how to live with the land, how to use its gifts without harm. Zalera's strength grew, her body glowing softly with the light of the new life within her. But even in this peace, shadows lingered. A message came through a hidden frequency on Elias's communicator. "It was brief and cold," returned the queen. "The child is a threat. Your actions will be punished." Elias's face darkened. He knew the palace would never give up. Zalera looked at him, eyes fierce. "Let them come," she said. "I will protect this life, no matter the cost." Together, they prepared for the battles ahead, not just for survival, but for a future where love and hope could defy the cold chains of power. The child's heartbeat echoed in her soul, a steady drum of life and promise. And in the vastness of space, a forgotten queen was ready to rise again. The silence of the planet was broken by a distant rumble. Zalera stood at the edge of the clearing, feeling the ground vibrate beneath her feet. Elias was beside her, his eyes scanning the dark horizon where a fleet of ships slowly appeared. The palace guards had come, relentless and determined, not willing to lose the prize they had once discarded. But Zalera was no longer the woman they had left behind. The warmth inside her grew stronger each day, and with it, a power that flowed through her veins like wildfire. The Guardians had taught her much, not just how to live with the land, but how to awaken the ancient strength hidden deep within her bloodline. The first ships broke through the tree line, their cold lights cutting through the night. Soldiers spilled out, weapons ready, and faces hardened with purpose. Their leader stepped forward, armor shining under the twin moons. "Return the queen," he commanded, voice echoing across the clearing. "The child is forbidden." Zalera lifted her chin. Her voice was calm but filled with steel. "You abandoned me once. You left me to die because I could not serve your throne. Now I carry a life you could not create. That life will not be." Taken, Elias moved to her side, his hand finding hers. Together they stood as the wind whispered through the leaves, carrying with it the promise of change. The battle was fierce but brief. The Guardians rose from the shadows, their luminous forms moving with speed and grace. They fought not with weapons, but with light and power that bent the very air. The palace soldiers faltered, unable to match the strength of the protectors and the queen's own will in the chaos. Zalera felt the child move stronger, as if sensing the fight for life itself. Her power surged, a radiant glow surrounding her. She spoke words in an ancient tongue, forgotten by most. And the earth beneath trembled softly in response. The soldiers retreated, their resolve broken. The leader knelt, his armor scuffed, and his voice humbled. "This is your home now," he said. "No king will claim you again." As dawn broke over the horizon, the green planet bathed in golden light. Zalera held Elias close, her hand resting gently on her belly. The child inside was a beacon of hope and unity, a symbol that even in a galaxy torn by power and pride, new beginnings were possible. The Guardians gathered around, welcoming the queen and her human companion as family. Together, they would build a future where love and strength were not divided by blood or throne, but united by choice and courage. Zalera smiled, knowing her journey had only just begun. The forgotten queen was now a queen reborn. Her child would carry the legacy of two worlds, and their story would shine across the stars for generations to come. Asterisk.